Hi, everyone. This is the Quality Department key review for the month of March 2021. As always, we aim on efficiency. We provided a brief preview update recording and also highlighted the key highlights in the document itself. We hope that everyone has a chance to go over it. And we'll go ahead and start with questions right away. I believe that Eric has number 4 on average successful pipeline duration.
Yeah, and I did watch your video a few hours ago, so thanks for that. So it looked like on the, I believe it's called the average successful pipeline duration KPI, the target line was well below where it seemingly our kind of year-long average or so is. Like the target line is under 30 minutes, and we've been hovering around 60 minutes. So I was wondering if it was a case where we're just not, it's beyond ambitious, and we should have something more ambitious that we can target, and we can always lower the target later.
I agree. I think there's a case to move back to a good known state. I believe it was 49 minutes. This is also the case of we had limited hiring in EP team. We're running 4 engineers for the longest time, and we haven't been keeping up. So we could iterate this to 45 minutes, which is still ambitious. That will beat our previous lowest point, and then adjust from there once we have hit 45 minutes. Kyle, you have any?
Go ahead. I was going to say, when you say you're not keeping up, it's not that there's no vacancies. So you're saying the size of the engineering productivity team has been fixed. The size of the rest of the organization is growing. Not that we're not unsuccessful hiring or adding to the team or something like that.
That is correct. Thank you for that clarification. There has been no hiring in the EP team.
Okay, we do have a gearing ratio defined though, so we're not keeping up with our gearing ratio when it comes to advocating for headcount. So it sounds like we have to do that as the next step. Next time headcount becomes available.
Yes, we have a gearing ratio. You're correct. We do have 1 or 2 hirings at the in the list, but it's in the lower list. But I'll advocate more with my team on this to make sure that's captured.
Okay. Okay, so it looks like we'll change the target to below 49 minutes.
Below 49 minutes.
Try to hit that. Okay, then make it more ambitious. Thanks. So I've got 5, which was, I wrote these notes while I was watching your video. So I said, oh, we should have Mac add MAR to his KPIs because that's really important. I see you did later in the video go to my KPIs to talk about it. So my suggestion would be to just have it in your KPIs so it's right in that executive summary section and you're tracking it as well.
Yep, agreed. Thank you for that. And I believe we've made improvements here. Kudos to the team. I wanted to highlight that as well. Thank you.
And I got number 6, which was a suggestion to demote the handbook update frequency from a key performance indicator to a regular performance indicator. It doesn't feel like it's at the same level as things like MRARR and pipeline success rate and mean time to close and these other sorts of things.
We could revise on that as well. I do have a plan to put this in Q2 OKRs to have the management team push this a bit more. So I still think we could be improving here in that regard. And if we think that's a consistent thing with the adjustments you're planning, then I'm happy to move this down as well.
Yeah, I kind of want the KPIs that are defined. They need to be representative of across all of quality. So we've got quality engineering productivity. We're adding something around driving these open source contributions, and we're adding engineering analytics to it. So 4 sub-departments within the department. So the KPIs need to be kind of like a high level overview of those 4 areas. And this one feels like it's a drill down into something. So this is the first time we're doing a quality key review. One of the things we want to do is just trying to like make sure we're measuring the best things at the highest level, and everything that we can measure as much as we want, but that's where we put the RPIs.
Okay, sounds great. We can take an action item to make this an RPI in this iteration.
Cool, thanks. And it looks like the next one accidentally got indented, so I'll undent it. So number 7 now was, I saw we added a new RPI for bug SLOs, all 4 severity levels, which felt like it was kind of measuring the same thing in a different way than what you opened with, which was the KPIs for mean time to close S1 and S2. So what's the long-term strategy? Is it to measure both because they measure different things, or adopt one and not the other because it tells a more effective story?
In the remark of the bug attainment SLO RPI, we were planning to move, separate them out and have this as a supplemental chart in the shared dashboard when you drill down the MTTC of S1s. And that's the current chart as well. You're correct. We believe we should have just one single source of truth for the metric. And then for other stories, you can drill down and look at the chart instead. That'll be the next iteration.
Okay. And number 8, same, just thinking about you driving community contributions, having, we talked about percent of overall contributions that come from the community being a KPI, having it at my level, and then I think having it at your level makes sense too, since you're driving a lot of those efforts with the team.
That sounds great. Kyle, you want to vocalize as part of your update?
Yeah, makes sense to me. I'll add it in with the other feedback you had on changing around MR rate.
So it'll work kind of like a pass, like in OKRs, we have pass-through key results. This will be sort of like a pass-through KPI where it'll be at the engineering level, it'll be at this level. And then number 9, it felt like the software and test gearing ratio we might need that to be a KPI since that's your single largest sub-department. And we know that we're behind, and that's important to driving a lot of things successfully, like being SaaS first, quality in general. So I want to make sure next time, like if finance is about to release a bunch of headcount, that we've got a lot of eyes on this KPI. There's general awareness that we don't have as many as we hoped, that these folks are very important to quality and things like velocity. So it makes it an easier discussion next time we're just negotiating headcount.
Agreed. I think we can move with this. Thank you.
All right, Sid, on to you at 10.
Yeah. Why do we still have mean time to close when it goes the wrong way, when you do the right thing? And we have the average duration of open bugs, which I proposed and seems a much better measure.
Yes, we ran into that realization as well with the spikiness too, that the teams are closing and cleaning up old bugs. The spike goes up. This is a story we found out after looking at the supplemental metrics inside the shared dashboard as well. We could always iterate. Do you think that MTTC at this point is no longer accurate representation of what you're looking for, Sid? We could.
Yeah, as I said before, it doesn't, like the whole reason I asked for average open duration is exactly this problem. Like you're not measuring all the stuff you're not closing out. That is a problem because what goes wrong at companies is that they forget about old bugs, or like, well, what goes wrong at companies? Anyway, it goes the wrong way. Like, let's not have a measure that goes the wrong way. Let's deprecate it. Let's deprecate it tomorrow. Set a target for the open time. Get rid of it. We're measuring something that's the wrong way. Let's not have that.
I am fully aligned. We could definitely do that. Though we can't. If we target the average age of open bugs, the age would be astronomically high at 400 average days, and then the target would be setting the next one to be 370 or 350. If you're okay with that, we would just align on that. Okay.
Well, now you could achieve a nice target because you're not measuring all the, like, let's not measure all the things that are a problem. Yeah, then you have a nice target, but we should measure including all the problems.
Okay, we'll take up an action item to revise and deprioritize MTTC, and we'll move up average days of open bugs.
Deprioritize, just get rid of it. Get rid of a thing that points you in the wrong direction. Remove the signage, remove everything. And yeah, it's not pretty to look at the 400, but it is what it is.
Low level of shame. Thank you. We'll give you on that. Craig, you have 11?
Yeah, it's a similar question to Sid's. I like the addition of the like the backlog visibility, which shows not only the count of the S1 bugs, but also the mix of the average close plus the SLO, which I think the SLO is actually, I think it somewhat gets to what Sid's talking about, which is how well are we getting to them at a certain speed. I think it tells a good operational story. I guess what surprised me was that there's about 15. It's a small number of bugs open, but they're very old. So I guess the question is, do you have any insight to why? Are those just really hard ones that have been out there a long time? They're S1 bugs, so to me that doesn't seem intuitive. That they feel like they'd be a higher priority. So I just like to get intuition why the age is so high on that population.
One of the better signals we've seen when it's not getting close is that it's not clearly producible, or is not reproducible in the current state. So I think a push for that would be to have teams look at how to reproduce that bug again, and if not, just have them close it out so the signal's clear. If someone's running into it again, it's a true S1, then someone will file another new S1. That'll be
or reopen it or something like that.
Yes, right.
Or you could even deprioritize it, but it shouldn't be an S1 if it's not affecting if it's not affecting a ton of people.
I agree. We can take an extra time to invigorize the team on just cleaning out S1s. So we shouldn't have really old ones.
It looks like it's only 10 to 15. It's small, but if it's really an S1, like someone should be working on it. If it's not an S1, then make it an S2 or close it out, right? So
agreed. We'll take that feedback.
Awesome. Thanks for that insight. Yeah, who's next? I think Sid's next.
Yeah. We have only 34% of the number of software engineers and tests that we need. Seems like a big problem that needs drastic, as like big and immediate action.
Yes, thank you for this. Eric has been super supportive. We have the remaining list of hires in the single source of truth hiring sheet. Coincidentally, last week I've asked my managers to look at their prioritization in their queue and give me an updated list. With that info, I can take an action item to update the signal there in that sheet and advocate more in that regard. Thank you for your support here. And I believe moving the gearing ratio here into a key, we'll get to see the signal going forward as well. I believe that will help in this the same line.
So some historical context on this one. Quality was a department that didn't exist at all when I started. And so when we create these gearing ratios, there's a question of what do we need? And that's up for debate. I mean, maybe we're at 34% of target because we're overdoing the gearing ratio or whatnot. But the other factor that came in was, well, how fast can we reasonably grow? So like in 2019, I think the gearing ratio would have dictated we grew the quality department 600%. That just wasn't possible from a human hiring perspective. And so we said, okay, well, we have to exercise a little bit of patience and grow into the need kind of at a controllable, like a healthy rate of growth for a department. And then hiring came to a hard stop in early 2020. And quality was just like, we had a plan to get to our gearing ratio in calendar year 2020, and then headcount across the board just sort of like paused. And so quality was left kind of like out in the cold when the door is shut. And we've been waiting ever since to sort of turn that back on. Now we have used this, what Meg mentioned, the spreadsheet where we prioritize all of headcount across all R&D within Scott. And we have been opportunistic when there has been attrition. We have occasionally taken that backfill away from whatever team it was and added it to quality. So quality has been one of the groups that's been growing much more than average over the last year and a half. But it's been when no groups are really growing because we haven't had a lot of vacancies across the board. But yes, absolutely. Once there is headcount available, Mac and I are ready to be making a strong case that we need to be growing quality at an outsized rate compared to feature teams and the other things that will be competing for the same dollars in finance.
Can we prioritize someone focusing on the front end of our merge request code because it's buggy, it's laggy, it's unperformant, and it's really hurting the entire company and our prospects in the market?
We're happy to adjust it. I was planning to have asking dedicated staffing for the a software engineering test for the UX, the front end foundational team. Until we get that funded, I was looking at the SCT for editor team can focus on this in the short term. I know this came up in mobile layouts and things of that sort as well. And that'll be,
it's not just like my recent post of 3 days ago. It's like if you look at our Net Promoter Score feedback, that is the one that most people complain about. So it's coming from multiple sources. And it's basically the most used functionality in GitLab. Like the editor stuff, it could be like, if that doesn't work, that's not nice, but people can live. But if this thing is the most essential thing in GitLab, the merge request reviews. So not telling you to change your order, but I'm surprised I don't see anything reflecting it. And it makes me wonder whether we have considered the popularity of things when we make our investment, or that we just say, oh, there's this many people working on it, etc. But I think like if we have a part of GitLab that's heavily used, we should, the bar for quality goes up, and I don't see that.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. This also lines up with some of this discussion we had, especially in Runner, where the feature is broadly used, the permutation of testing is high. We need more than one SCT, and the pattern is we borrow staffing temporarily and then release it. We'll take this feedback, and especially for merge requests, I'll look into adjust what we can do, what we have for merge requests, focusing on the front end.
Yeah, so Eric, maybe we have a ratio now that's appropriate for like the heavily used parts, but we don't need the same ratio for the lesser used parts. So it's now showing a bigger deficit of engineers than there really is, but also of the engineers we add, we put them on the wrong projects.
Yeah, there is this recency bias, or like the squeaky wheel gets the grease sort of thing. And so as much as Mech can action this immediately, probably it should be something more holistic, where like, let's come up with a way to score each individual area.
Exactly. Let's use the mouse score to set the ratio. The ratio is now assumed to be constant. That doesn't make sense. It's not a constant ratio. The bar goes up the more SMAUs there are.
Yeah, I think my point in E was similar to this point. Just like, I think given that, you know, based on the history you just described, Eric, it looks like we set something a while ago, and it seems like we have an opportunity to iterate on the gearing ratio approach, and let us know how we can help.
Yeah, and the goal prior to this was just kind of like, think of people trying to cover the whole application, holding hands and being stretched very thin. Now, especially with more headcount, we can get into being more strategic and double covering areas that don't on the surface appear to sort of need it, but have extremely high usage or have a high degree of complexity or these other sort of factors.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Thanks.
I'll verbalize mine in D7. We have OKRs coming up for MR performance and usability in Q2 and Q3. Could we fold some of this work into the OKRs? Does it have to be QE who's working on it? If we had really actionable issues, are they things that developers could pick up?
So yeah, so the mandate of the quality department is to make sure development knows what their quality is. So development actually works on a lot of these things. What Mex people do is work on frameworks, tools, some of the hardest tests that very few people can write, like two-factor auth for SAML or something like that. But yes, it's very much about directing the work that development would execute. So some of these things need to go to product managers to be prioritized for their the development teams that are aligned with their area.
Yeah, and I have the next comment to echo Christie's comment. We know what's wrong, and that's why the OKR is to go fix it, which will be PMs, UX, and engineers. But as soon as we do it, then we'll need the regressions in the quality area so that we don't repeat the same mistakes again.
Thank you. As an action item on this part from me, I'll look into how we can factor the MAUs metric into the gearing ratio, and I'll provide a follow-up then.
And Nick, we're happy to help over here in finance.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We can help.
Shall we move to 13, Sid?
Sure. Unique contributors per month is going down. Any color on that?
This is where we'll be transparent. I have no signal at the ground level yet on why it's going down. this has been raised as a concern in our recent meeting as well. We have a sync with the community relations team, and I'm not sure if Kyle, Tanya, have you touched on the signal? Do you know of anything we can provide here? We can follow up later.
Nothing quantifiable, just contributor friction getting in the way. So trying to isolate those points and get that ground truth a little bit more based on the feedback from Christos.
Yeah, we can dig in more with Christos to try to find out some theories and at least test them out, figure out the root cause.
And Kyle, do we know if this the metric here is also lines up with what the dashboard that the community relations team is tracking, like the BTGR? Are we saying that the same trend?
I believe there's the same trend. I think the units that are counted are a little bit different. So I'm sorry, my son's behind there. But the units that are counted are a little bit different. It seemed like they were counting commits when they look at contributions and don't really have an atomic contributor count that I'm aware of.
Okay. So we can provide you an update before the next key in the CEO channel, and then this is high on the radar as well.
Cool. Yeah. Be especially interested if we're counting commits instead of MRs. That seems MRs is closer to value. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
One thing on that was changed. So the last community relations group conversation, they were counting commits, but I look at the Bitergia dashboard and then they've changed to MRs. I'll link to the dashboard.
So it's MRs going forward?
Yes.
Right.
Thank you, Kyle. And I believe we're at the end of the agenda. And I think that wraps it up for our key review.
Thanks, Mac. This is the first quality key review, so obviously a deeper level of scrutiny and a deeper level of detail than ever before, but all good stuff to be working on. Thanks.
Thank you very much for all the feedback. We appreciate it.
Thank you.